Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Oh, what's my good cheer? Just a little bit more. I had a little bit extra tonight in that relaxing of my system. You know, sometimes we get so wired and we think it is one great big problem. We'll get right into it. We think it's one great big problem, but in actuality, it's the accumulation of little issues, little bites, little compulsive thoughts that we have over and over and over again. And in that, we spend a lot of time that we can dedicate to other things that would be much more useful for us. But I'm guilty, you guys. I'm coming out of a set of a few videos here on, what do you call them? Equestrian, they're horse riders. It's not a topic I've ever been interested in my entire life. My mother loved horses. She was an artist and she was always drawing and painting horses. But for me, horses were never a thing. In fact, when they go horseback riding and stuff, though I like the idea of horseback riding, it was terrifying for me, and it was kind of probably a little sloppy and and ucky for me too, because when the horses got hot they would foam and sweat, and it was just for me an unpleasant experience. I've never been a horse person, and you know I have been subscribed to this couple uh for I have no idea, a few months anyway. And sometimes when I need that brain dump, where you can just kind of stare at something and just, right, go off and give those other parts of you a rest and just zone out on something. And in the beginning, for me, it was just useless stuff. At least I thought it was, you know because there are so many topics out in the world, things that I can delve into that would make a little bit of movement for me, that would give me some insights that I might put that on my tool belt and go off to the world and save it, right? But yet I find myself compulsed about, I can't even say the word. They do fancy dances with horses, right? And and I think it's the relationship of the couple that I appreciate. I have been giving it some thought in the past couple of days, also wondering why my interests are being pulled, to the horses. I've also been looking at vacant land, abandoned land, and looking at home renovations in other countries and stuff. So, I'm taking note at the new tastes that I have, because I understand, I think that those other parts of me are just as curious and are in their own ways let me know their interests. When I first started in what I'm doing here, at first I thought it was a prerequisite. I thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me. That, right? It's not a cliche. It's so true. I really thought there was something fundamentally wrong with me when I looked out at the world and I saw how successful people were, how people had their poop together, and how they manifested such amazing things. I didn't wake up to these ideas to very late in my life. And by that time, I had had experiences, and I've had experiences, right? That amalgamation of all parts of me, right? And maybe it was a little bit of what I didn't know didn't hurt me, but I also believe that it is sometimes in that innocence that we have, in that lack of into some heavy topics that will make us compulsive instead of sometimes doing that brain dump because there's another reason for it, right? You're either giving those other parts of you a break. Sometimes it's an actual brain dump and you're zoned right out, and that's what your body and soul needs in that moment. Sometimes, and this has happened to me before, that I find that relationship, that's something that is very familiar to me in the characters. Sometimes, because of my hypervigilance, I'm feeling things out constantly. I'm feeling people out. I'm feeling out conversations. I'm searching for the truth. I'm bumbling along just like everybody else, right? And I have my compulsions just like everybody else. But I got some good advice early on that my purpose came from my pain. I didn't recognize that my pain was going to be a process for me, that it was probably going to be the most important thing I have ever done for myself and for my family, right? Going forwards for all of us, because as much as, you know, those other parts of me are moving forward, I believe that, and I know that, you know, those other characters that were so detrimental and so important in their experiences and adventures and lessons with me, that they're also, right, moving forward, right? And maybe we'll cross paths again, right? I'm assuming that we will, but it might not be for a very, very long time. And one of those lessons that I got this week was when I popped into my Instagram and actually went live with somebody. And it was the first time I had done that since I had gotten back from my trip at the very least in September. So it's been a very long time since I've gone live on Instagram, and how good it felt. And because I was going live with somebody I knew, somebody, you know, I didn't go live with her. I've never been live with her, maybe a few times, very short, spontaneous moments, but not in conversation. But we were close, right? And I popped into her live and we just picked up where we left off. How amazing that would be if those other parts of me could have a meetup, right? In some lifetime down the road. Maybe, that part of me is struggling. Maybe that part of me was born into something that had such serious issues and such kinks and handicaps, that physical, mental, emotional, that they were never able to surface in that, right? And in that relationship that I have in this life, if that life came across, see, it's in that relationship that we have with each other. We have no idea if we're going to bump into each other again, if this is a one time meeting, or we're going to end up as best friends. I've had enemies actually turn into best friends. My best friend, Beverly Edwards, oh my goodness, she was a big black Amazon lady. She looked like a full grown woman by the time she was 12 years old. In fact, she had already had a couple of children by the time she was 16 years old. But she was my best friend. And every time I walked down that school hallway, to go to class or to go home or whatever, she'd always go as fast as she could. And I'd have to walk as fast as I could to try to avoid her from going by me and just whacking me in the arm with her fists. And her fists were like those knuckle crackers, those steel knuckle crackers. Oh, every time. And then I was walking home from school one day and I got jumped by a bunch of the girls and I was getting beaten up pretty good. And this Beverly Edwards, this big black Amazon child woman, pounced on all of them and scared the poop out of them. They went running. And I wasn't stupid. In the beginning, probably I stayed very close to Beverly Edwards, right? Because she was taking care of me. But in that, we got to know each other and we got to be friends. And she was one of the few people that I was able to bring to my house that I wasn't afraid to have her meet my family. Maybe it was because her family was just as messed up as my family, but it wasn't the judgment in that. She was horrible to me. She was just horrible to me. And even when we returned to that city, I made a point of going to visit her, and her mom made me fried bean, rice, and chicken. And it was delicious, but it was very different from anything I had ever had before, right? I don't know why I got into that conversation. Oh, yes, it was to say that, you can do well by people, just by treating them well, even if they don't like you. Maybe somewheres down the road, you'll bump into them again and you'll be in a sticky situation and they'll remember that small kindness. And even if it was just a payback, right? That they could say, okay, we're even Steven. Next time I'm going to scalp you, right? In that moment of desperation, there is a kindness there. And when that kindness is received, the thank yous, the gratefulnesses, the smiles, the recognition of the kindness that the other person did, you will never forget that. And the next time you happen to get into a mess, maybe, or maybe you've just made best friends with somebody who just threatened to scalp you. Okay, you guys. I don't know what that was. I'll come in after my live and watch it for myself. It was a productive day for me today. Sort of, kinda. I was in my head. I got a really good lesson today by one of the ladies that I follow. She is a retired psychotherapist and she worked in universities. She's a very smart lady and she gave up her practice because she had her own ideas and what she was learning and what she was expecting to teach just kind of went against her grain. And I get her and I understand her. Not only do I understand her, she gives out some pretty amazing lessons that makes me feel that she understands me too. And so I've been following her for, oh my goodness, for a very long time now, a few years in any case. And, sometimes we pick up people along the way that we think that are way more credited than we are. And she definitely is. She went to university, a degree, a professor, right? Or therapist. Like she had those degrees. She had the credits. I didn't have anything. For me, it was in resolving some of those own limiting beliefs, the shadow work, doing that self-healing, figuring out where I got it wrong, where my family got it wrong, and where we can maybe do a little bit better by are, I don't have children, but my sisters have children, and we have great nieces. And my dad started this ball rolling, and maybe it wasn't even my dad, maybe it was who knows how it is. But it's in our responsibility to make sure that we do a little bit more too. We don't just bask in the glory and spend the, what do they call it, the Dow. We don't, we just, whatever work they did, we just take the credit and we take all the benefits of it, and we don't contribute to that goodness, so that when those other parts of us, right, come into the next person, then maybe they'll have a better understanding how to better connect, so that they can come to the surface and be beneficial in understanding and how to partner with themselves and somehow get that message across. I mean, they got that message across, right? And, I'm so grateful. I have no idea. Looking back, maybe I could put a few of those pieces together, but not all of them, because we're not really meant to know so much. I don't want to put my energy into that, like I said, when I can put it into something else. It's why I don't do the headline news. I went in tonight just to see who won the election. Canada, we are electing a new premier. We're going liberal. Um, but other than that, I'm not in the news. Oh, I heard the Pope died too. Sorry to hear that. Hear that too. I don't know if they got a new Pope yet, right? I guess there's some kind of vote. But these are things that I don't know, and I don't feel that compulsion to delve into that. And in not having that compulsion, that energy can go to something else. So, I heard somebody say, this week, I can't remember who it was. They say they limit the responsibilities, they limit what they have to do, so that balance of energy is always at a high level, because it's not being dispersed out everywhere. It's not how they explained it, but this is how I'm thinking it, because now I remember who said it, and they wouldn't have said it the way I said it. But it's the same message. It's the same kind of idea. Decide for ourselves, each one of us, what's important. What do we need? Our experiences in life. Like today, when I said, one of the ladies, psychotherapist, what a great lesson she had today. One thing I do beat myself up is that maybe I don't do enough, that maybe I'm a lazy bum, maybe, right? But sometimes, and she explained it in the most perfect way, we need to calm our system down. And sometimes you just can't say, okay, calm the system down, go off and have a pink ice donut with sprinkles. That's not enough. And it's not. And sometimes it's a lifetime that maybe somebody needs. And I think maybe I have done my very best to kind of direct the life that I have, so I can, right, I feel that need, that I need to spend this time with myself, because I'm trying to partner with myself, right? Sometimes parts of me surface, sometimes they get triggered. And they're hiding behind Cindy, who wants to hide too, and right, and space out and eat her pink ice donuts. And right, if we're both doing that, then we're no use to anybody, right? As much as I'm here, other parts of me are here too. And that is alone a very long time ago, because I think this is the way it's always been. But that recognition and that ability to kind of, right, do a little bit better by each other, this is something new. And in the moment, it's probably, right, I don't see a lot of people, going that route, but the way I feel, the way this feels, I feel that this is probably something that is tied up to our next stage of evolution. And, sometimes it's a little bit slow moving. And sometimes, it's the premier and only 50 people get to go through just to test the waters, make sure it's all good. It's not radioactive. We're not going to blow up. We're not going to poison ourselves. We're not going to, right? Right? Somebody has to go first. If we all jump in and it doesn't work out, we're done, right? And it's not that idea, sacrifice one for the whole, but somebody's got to do it, right? Somebody's got to do it. And I feel comfortable in my life, and and that's important because I can see a lot of people out there not comfortable in their life. And I I go, uh going back to this lesson that I got today. It was a big lesson. So it had me thinking, and it took a big load off of me, and it gave me recognition or little hints that I could look for in other characters that might help me move a little bit better, right? And I'm not somebody. I'm right. I stay out of people's space because I like people staying out of my space, right? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But I do know that we are a community, right? I do understand that. And you know, that's why I show up here every single day. And of course, right? Funny to say even that I see you there, Melvin. Give me 1 second, and then we'll I'll say hi, and then we'll get to the card. you know, okay, well, let's just get to the card. We'll leave it at that now because I saw Melvin was here. I saw him; he was here a few minutes ago, but I was on a roll. Hi, Melvin. There is no good cheer in Canada tonight since it appears the Liberals won the election. So friggin' sad. Who do you vote for, Melvin? I never voted, right? Again, my energy. This is that need. I don't, right? And people could judge me for that because there are lots of great causes and a lot of stinker causes that you can vote against by voting for something else. But, you know, I think I would much rather leave that to people who do know about that. I go with majority no matter what. And politics is one of those things that go by majority. So, I am not going to be the dividing vote, or the, what do you call that? The deciding vote. I'm not going to be the deciding vote. So you know what? I'll just leave that to the experts. And if you want to judge me on that, that's okay. Politics has never been my thing. I do have causes that I care about, but I don't know, right? I never went down that route, and I don't feel that need. And it's just one thing, right? Because I'm sure that talk took a lot of energy out of you, didn't it, Melvin? I bet you having the Liberals win tonight, that just zapped you right to empty, didn't you? Right? Maybe you could have waited until you had a good sleepy, because now you'll be up all night stewing about it. I don't mean to laugh, right? It is in that consideration. I don't even know what party you voted to. I was very surprised to see how few NDP votes that there actually were. Um, yeah, I found that curious, and I saw that they had all changed their branding on their trademarks, and so it was hard for me to actually find them. Uh, the Democratic, because they used to be red, white, and blue. Didn't they used to be red, white, and blue, or white and blue? And yeah, right, and I couldn't spot them at all. Right? Okay, you guys, let's get in. 2 minutes. Let's just grab a word. Um, First perspective. I never ask, sometimes when I do this with books too, and I'm just assuming lots of people out there, this was something that they did when they were a kid, but I carried it on, and I can do it with any kind of book when I'm looking for a little answer for myself, a little bit of insight. I do it with these two. Cindy, you needed word of the day. Grab a word and let's work with this. But I never specifically ask any questions of anything, because in that partnership with myself, and Cindy pops up, right? It's an amalgamation, and this is my style. But I suspect, right, if you get me, that you will kind of weed in between the conversations, and who knows, right? You might like Cindy as much as you like those other parts of me. You never know, right? It is in that partnership 100%. I am not the person I was even a half a dozen years ago, and it's been ongoing for a long time. But yeah, change is inevitable, right? Just got to make a choice and start moving towards that. Okay, here's the word. Good word, you guys. Good word. Oh, we got this word this week, you guys. Right? Thoughtfulness. Okay, so seeing we got this word already this week, let's get the insight, because you can see I just wrote the word on. And you know what? In a commitment, I'm thinking what my plan is tomorrow. In a commitment for tomorrow, I'm going to work on these cards and see how much I'm about halfway through them, but I haven't worked on them all week. So let's get working on these cards and get those insights in on that. But in that thoughtfulness, right, for my audience, that when I pull a card, that it is in my first perspective. That was my first perspective, because that was not very thoughtful to have that ready for me. That's my perspective. But let's see what I wrote down here in that perspective. Um, Thoughtfulness, where are you? There it is. Number 21. I don't even read. I don't even know. I'm going to get my magnifying glass on this one. Thoughtfulness is. Oh, that is so good. And it's so true. Thoughtfulness is remembered in my messy handwriting. That's going to be a good one. That makes sense to me, because I have made so many friends in my lifetime. And, yes, I am a people pleaser. And yes, in my own compulsion, if we were talking about compulsion today, I would go out of my way in my empathy to kind of feel out somebody, to recognize what would make them happy, to get to know their idiosyncrasies a little bit without interfering and trespassing in their privateness, right? And do small kindnesses around that, whether I bake something or I got out my shoebox and picked out a beautiful card and wrote some kind of insight into that. You know, my cashier at work, he was like a team partner to me, but he was also like a little kid when it came to Pokemon, right? So I would find Pokemans for him in the store during the course of the week because he only worked 1 day a week. And then I would give him these Pokemans and I would buy them for him. And it would make him so happy. And I didn't do that for any reason except to say, thank you. Thank you for being my partner. Thank you for putting up with me. Thank you for holding the ship up front when I have to go run off and solve a problem. And in that thoughtfulness, he would take those beatings for me up front when it became necessary, when I had to help haul in donations or bring in furniture or deal with a customer issue or break up a fight with the homeless people. It was a war zone, but it was a fun place and it was full of love and a community that really cared for each other. And I hope that community is still there because that wasn't just my community. I started that community, but that community was not just saying, hi, Cindy, hi, Cindy. It was like Nancy saying hi to Joanne and Joanne saying hi to Bob. And, right. And truly, it was a community. And it was in that small thoughtfulness that, when we get back to the Pokemon, that he would take those beatings for me when we got stuck. You know, I managed a restaurant and, I was doing schedules and I would accommodate my cashiers and my servers and my cooks and the schedules that they wanted to have off, and they were young, right? Of course they're going to want Friday and Saturdays off, but you negotiate, you meet in the middle, you get one weekend off a month. If I need somebody, I would just make a phone call. Can you come in for me tonight? Nobody would ever say no for me. And it wasn't the reason why I'd work the schedules for them. I did it for lots of reasons. One, there was no turnover because my staff was happy. So I wasn't always training new waitresses and cashiers and cooks, right? And the longer somebody stayed on, the more experienced they were, which meant there were less problems and things ran a lot smoother, not just for my customers, but for me as being part of the management too, right? But it didn't start off that way. It was just so I could have a good work environment, right? And at that time, I didn't know it, but I was creating my work environment so it would be comfortable for me, non confrontational, right? Right? Everybody helps everybody, right? If I need you, you're going to come in. But if you need something, I'm going to bend over to make sure that you're okay and you have what you need and that you love your job and you're going to stay with us. It's in these small thoughtfulnesses that people don't expect, right? That you do it. And sometimes it's just a momentary smile, but sometimes it's enough to kind of make a little crack that you can kind of think for yourself that, oh my goodness, how that made me feel. And the next thing you know, it's Johnny's birthday and you haven't seen him in a year. But you know what? You remembered Johnny likes cigars, right? And that small thoughtfulness of showing up on his birthday when you haven't seen him in a year with that cigar, what that does for him. And you might not see him for another 10 years. And when you do see him, you might be in a situation and he's going to remember that cigar, that really tasty good smelling cigars. My dad smoked cigars. I love the smell of cigars and pipe tobacco and stuff. I love the smell of that stuff, right? It's not good for you, but it's that comforting, loving feeling that I had attached to it because that was my dad, right? Okay, you guys, that's my good chair. Thank you, Melvin, for popping in tonight. For those of you who pop in later, I hope you're having an amazing day or amazing night, depending where you are in the world. I hope the sun shines on you. It's supposed to be nice tomorrow. I've been trying to get out for a little bit every single day. I was going to go for a long walk today, but I got outside. I had my scarf on. I had my jacket on and I was shivering and the wind was blowing and I had to grab my scarf and I had to pull it over my head and keep my cheeks and my ears warm. We're not quite into spring yet, but we're getting close. We're getting close. Okay, you guys, see you tomorrow.